This chapter deals with the impossible trinity, or as it is also often called, the impossible trilemma. Suppose that the government would like to have the following things. So on the one hand, it desires to have a stable exchange rate, so not too much fluctuation. Then it wants to have a sovereign monetary policy to be able to react to shocks by changing the interest rate. And often free flow of capital is also desired. The problem is, however, that not all three of these desired properties can hold at the same time. For example, if the exchange rate is fixed and capital is allowed to flow freely between countries, then we've seen that monetary policy cannot be independent at home. So there is no sovereign monetary policy anymore. The reason is the nominal exchange rate is fixed and the interest rate parity implies that the interest rate at home has to be equal to the interest rate abroad. So if capital flows freely, this can only be done by the central bank following a policy that ties the home interest rate to the foreign interest rate. Then if we have the situation that there is an independent sovereign monetary policy coupled with free flow of capital, then the exchange rate may react quite strongly to changes in the interest rate. So if the central bank decides to change the interest rate, say to increase it, you could have a lot of capital inflow, and this could lead to a huge appreciation of the currency. So independent monetary policy and free flow of capital would lead to a situation where the exchange rate might be quite volatile. And finally, if a country wants to have a fixed exchange rate, but nevertheless its independent sovereign monetary policy, then it needs to have capital controls. Otherwise, it could not have an independent monetary policy, because capital would immediately start to flow into the country if the interest rate is higher than the interest rate in other countries, because that would be beneficial to investors than to invest in the country with the higher interest rate, or the opposite would hold true if the interest rate were lower. So then in this case, there cannot be free flow of capital. And this trilemma can now be illustrated by a triangle, basically, where you have the three items here in the three corners. So a stable exchange rate here at the top, sovereign monetary policy on the right here, and free flow of capital here to the left. Now a country could opt to have a stable exchange rate and free flow of capital, but then it has to sacrifice sovereign monetary policy. Then this would be the country here located at A or along this side of the triangle. Or the country could say, well, I want to have a stable exchange rate and sovereign monetary policy, but then it has to impose capital controls. So it has to sacrifice free flow of capital. It would be here along this side of the triangle. Or finally, the country could say, I want to have free flow of capital and sovereign monetary policy, but then this is not compatible with a stable exchange rate or a fixed exchange rate. So then the country would be located along this side of the triangle at C. So overall we see, and that's the reason why it's called a trilemma, a country cannot have all three of these at the same time. It has to sacrifice one of them and decide where it wants to be located along this triangle. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I hope you found it interesting and useful. For more videos on economic content, please visit my channel that you find here to the left. And to the right, you see the next video in the series at the top, and at the bottom, you see the whole lecture in the form of a playlist.